Welcome to another episode of the Mannschrecks. I'm Sarah.
And I'm JJ.
Sleepy JJ,
I just had the biggest yawn. That was so strange. But no, we're here. We're not sleeping yet.
Yeah. Partially, though.
I'm telling you, hey, it's just tricky. It is so hard with life being busy and whatnot. It's like, get the kids to bed and still have energy. But we're here because we're dedicated to you, the listener. I just really like telling funny, goofy stories. I do have one update. Do you remember the Eminem story about the band that had it in the rider from last week?
Oh, yeah.
So friend Alex, friend of the pod, mentioned that it was Van Halen. Van Halen was the one who was known to put in their rider specific things like remove all the green M&Ms to see who was listening. Mm-hmm. I knew it was someone big, and I knew it was kind of older. Like, it was a long time ago it happened, but I had no idea who it was.
That's funny.
Yeah, so anyways, are you ready
to approach the news? How tired are you?
I didn't even think I was that tired until suddenly I had a big yawn like 2 seconds ago.
And then your brain stopped working.
My brain just all done. But what do you got?
Ready. All right, so my first story tonight is just as ridiculous. I clicked on it because the picture was ridiculous. Yes. So the picture was just a car parked on top of a dumpster.
What?
You don't even ask me how it's possible. So it's the mystery of an SUV seen perched on top of a Florida dumpster. Well, that's why it's Florida.
Florida man.
It was revealed to have involved a poorly timed parking job, a construction site, and a forklift.
Did the construction workers get mad?
Scott Greenberg said he was on his way to the store when he spotted the vehicle parked on top of a dumpster in Fort Myers. Yes. I had to do a double take. I texted my buddy. I'm like, is that fair game? Is that free? It's in the dumpster. Turned out the SUV had been lifted onto the dumpster by a forklift operated by a construction company working to help build a new apartment complex. Yeah. The vehicle had been left parked in the work area. Sometimes when you park where you're not supposed to, this is what happens, a construction worker said. So, yes, they were a little bit passive-aggressive in there. Well, if you're not going to move your vehicle, we'll move it for you.
When you first said that, a dumpster, a car on top of a dumpster, my brain, maybe it's just because of Art Prize, but, like, my brain was like, is this an exhibit or some kind of commentary or something? Like,
nope, it's a literal car on top of a literal dumpster.
I kind of love that, though. Like, I feel like that's sort of justified. If you park your car where you're not supposed to, and you leave it there, and it's like, nope, you have to deal with it if they do something like that.
Mm-hmm. So the vehicle was later removed from the dumpster and relocated to a parking space away from the work area.
Yeah, I'm sure they left it for like a day, and then they just.
That's it. That's the story. Like, they were just like, we're sick of this being in our work area. We're removing it.
Well, have you ever seen those ones where it's like somebody parks obnoxious in a parking lot and and they take up like 4 spaces? Yes. They're like, so then people park their cars around it so that it can't leave, and it's like, deal with it because you were rude and selfish and you did this thing. We're going to kind of make your life more. It's kind of ridiculous. Like we're all gonna be karma for you a little bit. Wow, a forklift, a construction site.
I just can't.
Hoisted a car.
It's impressive, honestly.
A little bit, like, it's super funny, and I would in the moment think it was really funny, but then like, after you think about it for a beat, you'd be like, what if they sue me?
Oh my gosh.
What if I accidentally drop the car and there's damages?
It's damaged and now I'm in a huge amount of trouble.
Because there's probably wouldn't be that hard to figure out who did it.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Oh, I wish they had set up a little phone or camera or something for the reaction. I would love to see the person come out. Is that my
car?
How
did they get here?
Because in my mind, and this is almost like a 90s stereotype, but it's some uncaring guy, and it has to be a man, and he's in a business power suit, and he's a little bit too self-important, and he gets out there, and he just starts freaking out, and oh my gosh, what's happening? I can't believe this.
My car.
Yeah, I would feel really bad if it was anybody else. Like, that's who it has to be.
It's an old lady. My car.
Wow. I love that. Car on top of a dumpster.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, that's happening in Florida.
This is why you get your fork driver's license, right?
Forklift, yeah.
Forklift operator's license? Yeah, that one.
Fork driver. I think we're all licensed to be fork drivers, I guess.
Oh my gosh, I can't. I just can't even today.
What's your story?
3-year-old leaves daycare, wanders to a nearby Walmart to buy Hot Wheels and snacks.
A 3-year-old?
A 3-year-old left his daycare, the Kitty Daycare Learning Center.
Ooh, not good for the daycare's
No,
PR.
down in Alabama, Dothan, Alabama, a child wandered away from the daycare, walked to a nearby store. According to the boy's mother, her 3-year-old son somehow got away from Kitty Care Learning Center on Tuesday. He asked to go potty, and they said go by himself. So he did. He was her son. His name is Sir Paxton. He was able to walk across the street to the Walmart neighborhood market after escaping the daycare. He was said to be making his way around the store unsupervised for about 20 to 25 minutes before an employee, who is also a family friend, spotted him headed to check out.
How does this kid wander around unseen by the daycare workers for at least a half an hour?
That's way too long to not check in on a 3-year-old. I'm not saying that you should be a helicopter parent, but if you run a professional daycare, probably sounds like maybe in someone's home.
Yeah.
But then you got to make sure you know where the kids are.
You sent the kid off to go to the bathroom by himself. You didn't follow up?
Yep. That's shocking. So
my
I'm glad that the Walmart employee, who happened to be a family friend, caught this kid, Wow. He had snacks in hand, and he was on his way to check out the Hot Wheels section.
Oh my gosh.
Surveillance camera shows that he left the daycare at 4:07. They were notified, according to the police, they were notified at 4:30. So 23 minutes before they called the police. Now, some of that might have been them panicking and running around the house. It's not like I called the police immediately. I would check my house first. You know?
My gosh, but still, that's crazy.
The mother wasn't notified about what happened until about
pickup?
5. Yep. Despite her frustration, she is thankful her son was not injured in the ordeal. We could be grieving his death. So,
yeah, how the heck did the kid cross the street?
I mean, if you teach him how to do it, or just there's no cars coming,
Just look at the draw.
I am deeply sorry to the child in our care, the parents, and those affected, said Salford, the owner of the center. She apologized for what happened. I take full responsibility as the director and owner of our failure to ensure the safety of those in our care, a duty as I've always held in my highest priority. Her security measures will also be updated.
Because she will be closing at the end of the month.
I was just going to say, what chance would you put your kid back in there? Nope. What do you think the other parent, would you pull your kid if you heard a different kid got out?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would have so many questions about what is their ratio of parents to kid, or of teachers to kids. Nope. What is their protocol? And honestly, it's annoying, but if a 3-year-old asks for help to go to the bathroom, especially if it's not your kid. If it's my kid, I will absolutely tell my kid, if I know within reason, you can go to the bathroom by yourself. Asher, come with me. You know how often he says, I'm going to go by myself, and then he says, no, come with me, so I end up following him. And he's 2. But if I'm helping someone else's child, I will just go with the child. And the kid says, help me, I will absolutely say, okay, I'll come with you.
Yeah, and most of the time, 3 is right on that line, though. Potty trained, probably, maybe able to wipe and totally independent, but that's tricky. That's so tricky.
I just cannot wrap my mind around that. I think, I would probably pull my kid if I had heard that happened at my daycare.
I guess I'm reassured that they have security cameras, right? It's security cameras showed this. And it's all right, so you knew.
I think you're required to, or at least according to certain state laws, right?
That makes sense to me. This is in Alabama. I don't know what the laws are down there.
I don't know either.
But yeah, that's my guess, is that this was in a home without those locking doors or the half doors that childcare places have. Like at the church, you have a nursery with a half door, and you can hand the kid over and just kind of keep them pinned in. Mm-hmm. But if it was daddy daycare style, those kids could have gotten away at any time.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy.
I'm so thankful. The only reason it's a cute story is because nothing happened, right?
Yeah.
He was wandering a store. If it ended
differently, it would definitely not be.
Oh, no, I would not have brought this story if it was dark. But no, and it's, what would you even do if you were you're working a shift at Walmart and someone that child walks by.
All of a sudden I just see I'm like, wait, that's so-and-so from church. What are they doing here? And then I'm like, Mom and Dad got to be here somewhere. And then I wait, and there's no parent.
Mom and Dad. Yeah. That would...
What the heck?
Oh, man. Yeah, I
think the first thing I would absolutely do is call the parent and be like, hey, are you in Walmart?
Yep.
Because I have your kid. And then if I found out they were supposed to be a daycare, I'd be like, whoa, you need to call your daycare.
What is he doing over here? And then Mom gets that call.
Major red flag.
Ooh, so anyways, that's the whole story.
Wow. So my story is weird, but it has nothing to do with kids getting lost. So,
Perfect.
A Chinese zoo exhibit features dogs disguised as pandas. These Chinese zoos are crazy.
Wasn't there a story?
The sun bears that are supposedly actually people dressed in costumes
because it was acting very human.
And then that Chinese zoo that did a drill where the escaped animal was like a person dressed up in a costume.
What's happening
I know.
over there?
What is happening in China right now? So a Chinese zoo exhibit is raising controversy online after a video showed a pair of dogs with their fur colored to look like pandas.
That's absurd.
A video posted to Douyin, China's version of TikTok, went viral after showing two fluffy chow chow dogs with their fur artificially colored to resemble pandas at Shanwei Zoo in northern Guangdong province.
Isn't that amazing? China doesn't even allow TikTok. China owns TikTok, and they won't let their people have TikTok. Because that should tell us something.
It does not appear the zoo is intending to mislead visitors, however, as a photo shared by CNN shows a sign identifying the animals as panda dogs.
No, that's just a dog.
We are called panda dogs, a pet dog that looks like a panda, dyed and dressed up by Chow Chow. We are gentle, smart, friendly, cute, and adorable.
So they do tell people then what it is. Okay, well, at least that.
But it says that
like
another zoo had a similar controversy when the animals in its panda exhibit, so it was animals that they were playing off as actual pandas, were revealed to be chow chows with their fur dyed. So apparently these chow chow dogs just can look like pandas.
Kind of resemble a panda. Okay.
So zoo spokespeople explained that the zoo put the dogs on display because it doesn't have any resident pandas, but they denied that the fur dyeing process was in any way dangerous or harmful to the canines. I still think it's weird.
Nope, that's very weird. I do think, I mean, we like zoos. We go to zoos. We take our kids. But I wonder if it's like a dying industry.
Maybe.
But it's not hard to find pandas in China, right? Like, that's where they come from.
I don't know.
It's like us struggling to find a raccoon. I got to dye this cat because I couldn't find a raccoon. And it's
what was that with the raccoons were rampant? Japan. They were like getting into all sorts of issues because they were not native to Japan.
Our
and
little
they were like
trash
taking
pandas.
over. It was Leslie Knope complaining about the raccoon infestation at the local hospital.
Yes, ding, Parks and Rec reference. All right, so fugitive murder suspect falls through the ceiling while trying to evade U.S. Marshals.
Where?
He was hiding in a house. He was trying to hide, and he fell through the ceiling.
Oh, my
In Memphis, Tennessee, a murder suspect on the lam for months fell through the ceiling of a Memphis home as authorities closed in around him, the U.S. Marshals Service announced this week. So it's a 20-year-old suspect. Wilkerson is the last name. He was wanted on an arrest warrant for a first-degree murder and reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon related to the homicide of a man named Troy Cunningham. So I think it's a shooting. So somebody was killed. Cunningham was found dead in a North Memphis sidewalk in April with a gunshot wound. So this Wilkerson is one of 3 defendants charged in connection to the homicide. A warrant was issued for him in May, and then he disappeared. They tracked Wilkerson to a home in Memphis. The home was surrounded by deputy marshals along with officers from Shelby County Sheriff's Office and the Memphis Police Department. So it's like everybody's descended on this house. While the entry team was at the front door giving commands and announcing the presence, authorities heard loud sounds coming from the home. The marshal said moments later the investigators at the scene heard a loud crash. He had tried to hide in the attic while they searched the home, but he fell through the ceiling.
Of course, because he was trying to walk on the... That's just bad
He was not injured, was taken into custody without further incident before being booked at the county jail. He did have an attorney listed when they reached out, and they reached out to the sheriff's office for comment, but didn't hear back yet. But oh my gosh.
Wow. It's not so sneaky, is it?
Nope. It's like the opposite of the Diary of Anne Frank. It's like an actual bad guy trying to hide in the attic and falling through the ceiling.
Wow.
Amazing.
That is, I can't. He's a 20-year-old, though, so he's not very brilliant.
That was something. I do have 2 bonus stories.
Oh, okay.
So we did the one with the little boy who got away. So now I have 2 other young people related issues.
Okay.
Like the young people are getting away from where they are supposed to be. Okay. This one is an 8-year-old who drove to an Ohio Target.
I saw that
in her mom's SUV.
Yeah, 8. That's
She's
Liam's
8
age.
years old.
8.
I cannot fathom.
And not just a small car, an SUV.
A big old SUV. And so there's not much of a story. She has not been identified because she's a little girl. They don't share names, She was enjoying a Frappuccino when she was located by the police.
How did she pay for said Frappuccino?
I don't even know.
Mom's credit card was in the car.
Probably. No, so she may have hit another car and knocked off a window, like a side mirror, but that's the only incident related to the issue. She drove the car successfully to Target. But then she told the police officers, I did hit someone's mirror.
Observation points for this child to be able to successfully get to Target.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think my kids could even tell you the directions to get to church.
Yes.
And we drive there all the time.
Yeah, it's far though. I wonder if Target is close.
How much does this kid pay attention? Like, she must pay attention pretty well if she's able to get herself to Target by herself.
I wonder if she knows how to ask Siri and maybe the
maybe the car's a GPS system.
Yeah, it had a little screen on it. Apparently it was a mailbox, not a side mirror. It was a mailbox she hit. So everybody was fine. She was found safe, but she did strike a mailbox.
Wow.
All right, and then in New York, so we got the little boy who runs away from daycare, goes to Walmart. We got the little girl who steals her mom's SUV and goes to Target. NYPD arrests teen for taking a subway train for a joyride.
I saw that story too, but
just
what the heck?
Nuts. Now, these are older teenagers. So it's a 17-year-old girl accused of taking a subway train on a joyride before crashing it into another parked train and then fleeing the scene.
Oh, my gosh.
It's about midnight a couple weeks ago, September 12th. This is when that all went down. So there were a bunch of teens, but the one is the one who did it.
Wow.
She got caught. And she was taken into custody on Wednesday. 2 days later, around noon, she faces charges of criminal mischief and reckless endangerment.
That's crazy. I honestly didn't even know you could.
There's not much to the story other than they found an empty train car that was parked, and somehow they got into the booth and figured out a way to get it going. And it's around midnight. And then they backed it up into another train. It's not a huge thing, but it's obviously not a good idea.
Wow, there's so many levels of no.
Isn't that just insane? You
shouldn't be out that late. You shouldn't be on the subway that late. You shouldn't be trespassing that late.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of that. But I don't know what's happening with the children these days.
Where are your children?
Well, a little bit though. Do you remember that the stories about how the younger generation has no interest in getting licensed and stuff? Kids aren't getting it at 16, they're getting it at 19 now, and it's some of them are out there at 8
breaking and entering.
They're ruining the average. I'm gonna steal me a train.
I think I'll just drive to Target. You want to ride? No, I think I've got it. I'm 8. I got it.
I don't know. Those were just mini stories.
It's the story we did a story maybe it was a year ago or several months ago about the brother and sister that drove away. Right? They hijacked the car and were trying to drive to Florida.
Yes, vaguely I'm remembering this. Yeah.
I can't remember why they were driving, but I just remember they told authorities that it was a 13 and a 10-year-old or something.
Did we make the joke about that? What's that movie?
On Our Own?
Yeah.
We probably did.
I'm sure we did. Because that's the first thing it reminds me of when the kids do that.
Yep. Steal the car and drive. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy.
Yep. We're getting away.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to, what was it, Colorado or California or something?
Yep. Driving across the country.
Oh my gosh. So that was way too many stories, but they were just fascinating little tidbits here and there.
Kids are going crazy.
Kids are going crazy.
Check on your kids.
Do you know where your car is? Has your child stolen a train recently?
That's your kid.
Oh my god.
Are they walking around Walmart just looking for snacks?
All right, you ready for Sponsor of Your Life?
I think so.
All right, what do you got?
All right, so I guess we're just running with the art prize theme, but I'm going to talk about art prize again because we went for another Friday night at art prize.
Yep, awesome.
And we decided to take a little mini lunchbox of charcuterie kind of stuff. And
it was perfect. Yeah,
had some dinner downtown,
meat and fruit and
and then we bummed around the DeVos Place.
Yep, that was the big one that we did. We did the whole skywalk.
DeVos Place. Is that right? DeVos Place? Is that what
it's
called?
DeVos Center, DeVos whatever.
Right, that's what I'm second guessing myself. Anyways,
that's where we went. Yeah.
DeVos Performance Hall. So we went there and we wandered around and then walked all the way through the skywalk and saw tons more art downtown. And it was so much fun. Like they got a kick out of walking through the skywalk.
Yep. Very, very
and
fun.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a lot of fun just like walking around. Kids got some great like. They picked up some cool cards from some of the artists.
Yes, they did.
We saw King Tut's tomb. And,
that was carved out of wood.
Yes, it was actually cool. Super impressive. Like, there were some really cool paintings we saw.
It was enough that it kind of freaked out Amos. He was a little nervous around it, actually. He was. That is moving.
Yeah, they had, like, this whole, like hydraulic system set up to, like, show how things go back together and come apart. And it was,
tomb closed.
Yes, it was impressive, honestly. But,
it really was.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. He was there.
Wearing like a weird kind of Egyptian
He was wearing a tunic.
Shirt.
It was cool, though. We had a good time. And we spent a good amount of time there. I'd say we got down there at like 5 and ate dinner and then walked around. And we were down there till like 7.
There was... Oh, yeah. We were there a long time because it was so good. So I think there were 2 favorites that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Ironically, both about like powerful women. The one was the carving of Africa. And it was like a piece of wood.
So cool.
It was like made out of puzzle pieces and wood. But there was a light bulb in the middle. And then when you looked at it, when the light bulb, it had like... It was shadowed on part of it. And the shadows created the outline of a black woman's...
Yeah, it was
head.
It was like a silhouette of her head. Yeah,
around the Africa. So it was like the light bulb and the carving of the wood. The edges of the continent gave the shadow of a person's head. It was cool very concept. Cool.
It's so hard to describe that.
It is.
We should include like
pictures.
Visuals.
I did. I took a picture.
Oh,
of it
good.
I thought it was so
it's
cool.
such a cool picture. But yeah, that and then the other one.
With the other one for me was the Princess Diana photo. There was this gorgeous picture. Giant.
It was a drawing.
Really
it was pencil.
But it was
on
done
paper.
So there was one continuous line, and so it was like a little squiggle rhythm, or what's it called, pattern, and it was this squiggle pattern over and over and over all the way down the thing. But so you could put your finger on it at any one point and trace it, and the lines never crossed over one another.
Yes, it was so impressive.
But then some parts of the line were darker shaded and some parts were lighter, and that's how the picture was made, when you back up or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was just
it was a huge picture.
And it was very cool. The other one I really enjoyed was at the DeVos Place when you're on that second level walking. It was a giant picture, and it was a mom.
It was a charcoal drawing.
Was it charcoal or pencil
charcoal
or something?
On paper, yeah.
Very simple, like black and white, not shaded in. But it was a mom on her side feeding her child with her other 2 children next to her, and it was very classy, like not anything inappropriate, but it was just really a beautiful picture, and I thought it really drew you in.
It was a huge drawing,
and the little girl's hair and her toes,
it looked so realistic. Like it was very, very well.
And
there were
really
some really
big.
good ones.
It was like long, it was like maybe 15 feet long.
Yes, it was. It was definitely it had to be labor intensive.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I can't imagine. But that was just a cool picture in general.
It was.
It was very cool. Those were the 3 I'm remembering right now. Mm-hmm. There were some sculptures. I mean, there was all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, there was. There was some cool stuff.
And not too many that were like scary for the boys. There was a few. Oh, do you remember the like old man nature ones where it was like a guy's head, but it was like made out of trees and mushrooms?
Liam
and stuff?
loved that one.
There was a lot of them. He had like 15
It was very
different
detailed.
Ones.
Yes.
And there were like different people and faces made out of like nature scenes. And actually the artist was there and he was selling those pictures on a sweater if you wanted to get a hoodie of it.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool. I have no idea how much they were. I didn't look, but
they were very detailed, very colorful. They were.
That was
Liam was very inspired by those.
I like that one a lot too.
Yeah, it was cool. Mm-hmm. How about you? What's sponsoring your life?
Sponsor my life. Sorry, I probably talked more during yours.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's apparently sponsored your life as well.
We have done a lot of really fun things. We're trying to kind of squeeze in the end of summer because
technically it's fall now.
It is fall, and I'm all about fall. I like that. But we did one last trip to the beach, which sort of worked. It rained on us a little bit, and then we did our first apple picking trip, which it rained big time on us for that. But honestly, it was so much fun. Actually, so here's my sponsor. My sponsor is having fun in the midst of terrible things.
Yeah.
Because we've been doing a lot of that lately, where it's like, oh no, it rained while
it's
we were
less
at the
than
beach.
perfect situation,
But it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
We had a great time. The kids loved the beach.
They really
and then
did.
we go to the apple orchard and it rains. And it's like, oh, it ruined it. And it's like, but it didn't. Like, the kids had a
they
great
literally
time.
their ending, review of it all was not, oh, it was awful weather, that was not fun at all. It was, hey, I got to pick apples with my cousins and see grandpa. It was the best day ever.
And also, like, what was the name of that apple orchard?
Schwalier's Country Basket.
That was amazing. So, I mean, it was a bummer that it was raining so hard on us and it kind of got us all soaked. But those apples were ginormous and
they're
gorgeous.
huge.
They were beautiful. When we actually...
Yeah, we got
we hit it at exactly the right time.
How much did we get? We got a pack
big
of
bag
Honeycrisp.
It took me 2 seconds to fill it up.
It did. The Honeycrisp were gigantic.
I
literally... Yeah.
Looking at the tree, I was like, this is like out of a movie. Look at this. It's huge and just perfect. And you pluck it and it comes right off.
Well, and they made some good, it made good applesauce. I made, Ezra made applesauce for school today with it and it was delicious.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
It was fun.
It was so fun. And even church on Sunday, we had all kinds of hiccups and goof ups, but, worship was still awesome. And so it's just having fun in the midst of a mess when things are like, you might be able to say, oh, this was ruined and I'm upset. And it's like, or it was
you
awesome.
can choose to see the good in the situation.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of that lately.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of fun this past weekend, despite what could be seen as
it was a super good weekend.
Yeah. So definitely sponsor my life.
Nice.
Today. Okay. So I'm not nervous. I don't care. But I'm embarrassed to admit that we have been
Don't be embarrassed to admit it. You own it. It was amazing.
All right. So we have been watching. So I have never read or watched
Let's be clear
anything.
here, too. This was not my prompting.
Nope.
At all. I did not prompt you to do any of these things.
Nope, you did not say I want to do this. This was me. We were sitting there scrolling through stuff, and you like Jane Austen books. Like, you have read a chunk of them, if not all of them. I mean, you enjoy that genre and classic literature. And
I do.
Oh, you studied that. I mean, that's like
I was an English lit major in college.
Yeah. I've never read any of them, like, at all ever. And so I was a little curious, and we were scrolling. It was just one of those nights where it was like nothing sounded good to watch. And so we're scrolling, and Pride and Prejudice, was that the first one? Mm-hmm. Pride and Prejudice came up. And we watched it, and I was like, I have never seen this. And I didn't know anything of what to expect. And I was surprised how much I enjoyed it.
It's good. It's good literature. I'm telling you, it's good. And it was a good adaptation, too.
Yeah. And so then it was like, well, let's watch Sense and Sensibility.
Yep, so we did.
And then let's watch Emma. And then, like, we've been watching so many of these movies.
It was good.
And so what I thought we could talk about for our hot topic, sort of our big conversation, was I was pulled into this world of class structure, and there's like high society and lords and ladies, and then there's like middle class, and then there's lower class, and there was a moment, I think it was in the first one with Pride and Prejudice, and I was very like, they don't really talk like that, do they? Did they really think that? And you were like, yeah, no, they totally did, because it was in the books, and those books were written in that time period. Mm-hmm. It's not like she was imagining the past.
Back into the
she
past.
was describing what she knew,
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by it because I guess I've always known, there are people who think high class, low class. There are lords and ladies, and then there's servants and whatnot. But I guess I thought we had done away with a lot of that. And so I'm interested. What do you think about the class structure? To me, it's almost purely economical. Like, it's just how much money you have. If you're high class, that just means you have a lot of money.
Right.
But I'm starting to realize, at least in these films, and maybe just in life in general, high class is not just about money. Obviously, that's a big part of it, but it also has to do with the way you act and the type of person you are.
Expectations and demeanor and the way you treat other people and stuff too. So,
because these books, and not everybody's going to be into this, but mostly the books or these movies were all about who is going to get married and who they are allowed to marry and who is in their class and marrying above or below their class, and that's a scandal and trying to make a smart match for everyone.
Yeah.
That's like the whole plot of basically all of them, you know? And it's fascinating to me because I mean, we did, I think, marry for love. I fell in love with you, but
we live in a totally different society and a totally different time period.
But what's interesting is I think we are in the same class.
I agree. I
think we grew up in the
Yep.
same socioeconomic level, and so it would be different if your parents had, billions, and maybe if you were like an heir, your parents probably would have objected to me. Does that make sense? Like, I do think that still exists.
Yeah,
a little
that's fair.
bit.
That's fair.
It's fascinating, right? So I have 2 articles I want to kind of talk about. And so the first one is... No, I want to do this one first. It's the Church and Social Divide, breaking down the divisions. This is from Student Christian Movement, from movement.org/UK.
Okay.
And so this a story... They open up with a story about... a senior church member who's talking to a minister, and they're bemoaning the fact that the church is struggling for membership. And the friend responded, now this is in the UK, and the friend responded and he said, go into your churches and listen to the accents of the ministers in your church, and you'll find the reason your church is not growing. And the friend explained that the area in question where they were, the church was in a working class area, and that's where they had spent time there. But the ministers don't have the local accent. These ministers are well educated. They come in and nobody's going to their church because they have an accent. For them, I guess
It's not
growing
relatable.
up in different areas is you have a different accent.
You have a dialect, yeah. It would be like if someone from Alabama came and,
then
preached at our church. It's like, well, you don't have a Midwest accent.
Mm-hmm. And I do think there is, in America, there is an assumption that a Southern accent is dumb or lower class or something, which I think is wrong and mean, but interesting. It's like, oh yeah, people kind of associate that with sort of non-educated folk,
Unfairly, yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And the statistics do bear that out. It's the senior they were like, well, surely it's just an anecdote, they're just doing the best they can with what they've got. But this is actually pretty common. A recent YouGov poll found 62% of churchgoers are middle class, and only 38% is working class.
Wow.
And working class is the level below middle class.
Yeah. So
however you view class, the fact is those from poorer backgrounds are coming to church less, which I thought was really interesting. The dominant culture of our society is middle class because middle class people can afford to be shapers of culture and therefore society. Musicians, actors, business women, and politicians come from middle class backgrounds because it's a question of the haves and the have-nots. All parents, no matter how much money they make, want the best for their children. But those who have the means to give it to their children. It means they can give them private tuition, music lessons, a beautiful house near a good school. Whereas for the have-nots, raising their children is 3 square meals a day, shoes that fit, and a roof that doesn't leak. Their focuses are different.
Different priorities.
And so this second scenario, there are only a few who can get from the working class up to the middle class level. And sometimes it actually means skipping a meal so your kid can have those extra things to get ahead. And so they're talking in England. So they're talking about the Church of England, and they're like, we have condemned this child poverty and the inequalities and stuff. Right. But it's just not enough because there is a culture. When a working class person walks into a church, what do they feel? When they speak to the people in the church, do those people reflect a reality they recognize? And I really started thinking about that because one of the things this article mentions later is the book of James and how James was pretty clearly against a class structure. Does that make sense? Rich people and poor people, you shouldn't flaunt your wealth. You should be in this together. You should be taking care of each other, not just thoughts and prayers. You're hungry.
Yes, I do know.
You're hungry. Let me give you my prayers.
Yep.
And it's like,
I'll
no,
pray for you.
Give them food.
No, give them actual food.
So James lays it out pretty bare. Christians should be equal. We should be in this together and take care of one another.
Right.
And yet our world doesn't reflect that. Even in civilized Christian society, there's still this inequality.
Divide, yeah.
But then I had this thought, and I wanted to see what you think about this. I think in the modern world, there is definitely still the money inequality. But I also think that it's sort of the type of life that you prefer or accept. Maybe it's just me being lower middle class, but I like my level. I'm not sure I would want to, you know what I mean? Like, there's a moment where you kind of view the trappings of the other levels as, oh no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting to me, honestly.
Yeah, like if you think about these high society types in the movies, like Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, it's all about image and what it looks like and what, you know, what your neighbors think.
Exhausting.
To me, truly. And it's like, I almost wonder if we're going to end up dissolving the class system into how you choose to live, the level of life you accept.
Yeah.
Because I think there's an element of you have to deal with what you are, the cards you're dealt, right? Some people make more money than others, the professions you choose and all that kind of stuff. But then there's another piece of it that's just kind of, well, but some people just don't like to care that much about their image.
It's true.
And when the wealthy folks don't care about their image, that's a scandal, right? It's a big problem.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So I wonder, so my question, I guess, to you is, are we getting to a place where your class is a choice of how you choose to live?
I don't know. I think sometimes it just seems so ingrained. Like,
yeah,
I get what you're saying. I do. I don't disagree that I feel the same way. Like, I do. But I just feel like there are some things about culture that, like, they just stick, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one thing that might be hard to shake. I don't know, though. I'm not a cultural anthropologist. I don't know what they would say about it. So
I just think it's fascinating. And I wonder about... Because, well, many of the movies are like a wealthy, very high society man who falls in love with a woman below his station or whatever. And then it's like, it's such a grand thing for him to love her below the level. Although his family's offended and they're outraged, and sometimes they'll cut him out of the will or something.
And sometimes her family will be like, you really shouldn't do this because this isn't right, and you don't deserve this or whatever. Just stay where you're supposed to be.
Well, and then I wonder, is it sort of an unequally yoked kind of thing? Like, you know, like if you do get married that way, there's always going to be the knowledge of like, you
didn't deserve this.
I'm not worthy to be in this relationship. There's like this weird
tension,
imbalance, and I think that's really hard. Not to say it can't be overcome, but that's weird. No,
it is interesting.
Like I think about, I don't remember his name. Who's the prince who married Meghan? Is it Meghan Markle?
Oh, Prince Harry?
Prince Harry and Meghan. Am I getting that right? I don't even know their names. But like he left his throne, right? Like that was a thing. And he was like, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. And I mean, they're still fabulously wealthy and she's a famous actress. And I mean, they're not like poor, you know?
Right.
But they've stepped away from the responsibilities of the sort of the highest level. So there's another article from resourcegeneration.org which describes class distinctions and income brackets, which I think was really interesting. And so they talk about the internalized class privilege has a really strong staying power for upper class people who might be downwardly mobile. So it's hard, just in general, for people to move from one direction to the other. But it does happen, and they call that mobile. Like you're either upwardly mobile or downwardly mobile through the classes. And so there's internalized privilege that appears quickly for people who are newly wealthy. And then they give examples of like, okay, a person who comes from wealth with multiple degrees, no student loans, but then they go bankrupt and they lose everything. And it's like, yeah, but they're used to this, and then they end up down here.
Yes.
Or a person who works a a middle or upper class person who chooses to work a very low paying job, like a barista or in a nonprofit or something.
Sure.
This is kind of a direction of like people shifting their categories on purpose. So there's 4 levels that they talk about. There's the poor or the working poor.
Sure.
Those are actually different, but you know. Then there's the working class.
Okay. Then
middle class, then managerial or upper class, and then owning or ruling class.
Sure.
So I guess that's more than 4. 5. But so poor and working poor. Life is marked by substandard, unstable, or inconsistent housing, underemployed or underpaid, sometimes long-term use of public benefits, little access to higher education, basic living expenses might be impossible or very difficult to obtain. often have debt from predatory lending services, cash advance, that kind of stuff, monthly bills or emergencies, chronic lack of healthcare, food necessities. They are treated as disposable. They are conditioned away from participating in the dominant society. It's 20% of our population, and they control negative 1% of our total net wealth.
Yeah.
They are actually the people in debt. Like they're down at the bottom, and they are often scapegoated as a burden. They are not positioned in any way as decision makers.
Right.
Which is true. That's poor and working poor.
Okay.
Then there's working class. Life is marked by housing that is sometimes unstable, or rental housing, or if they own it, that's where the majority of their assets and potential for wealth is tied to. Their occupation often involves physical labor, service, or care work for the upper and middle classes. These are the servants, right? Yeah. I mean, they don't call them that anymore, but they live paycheck to paycheck with little or no savings. They have access to higher education, but it's spotty, and it's a large amount of student debt. Some of this starts to sound familiar.
Yeah.
It might include turning to public safety nets to help make ends meet, often raised with strong value on resource sharing and taking care of each other. Targeted by the state as a huge source of revenue through fines, fees, cash, and money bail. Treated as replaceable. Conditioned to resent middle-class professionals who are like bosses and lawyers, and towards the idealization of wealth. They are 40% of the population, control roughly 3% of the wealth. Oof. So we've now 60% of our population controls 2% of the wealth.
Yes.
Then middle class now they are home ownership, generally stable housing, depends on wages, salary, often jobs that have some benefits, some control over hours and methods of work, social status, social connections to help the next generation. College is generally expected, but they may or may not complete their degree. Debt is most often in mortgage, education, or medical bills. Can generally expect to hold stable employment, but status can become precarious when there are unexpected expenses, such as high medical bills, loss of pension, and layoffs. Again, very familiar.
Yeah.
They are treated as the norm. They are conditioned towards a fear of being poor, to act in allegiance with and aspire to be upper class. So there's like I want to be up there, but I'm not, and I'm terrified of going down there. So that's
a fun place to be.
20%, and they control roughly 8% of the U.S. wealth.
Wow.
Managerial, upper class, we're almost done. Life experience marked by owning one or multiple homes, and marked by travel, including international travel.
Yeah.
They are dependent on salaries, but not investments to pay the bills. A mid to high level managerial professional jobs. Education is at elite or selective colleges. Some investment in the stock market, might have enough savings to retire early. Social connection, status, financial knowledge help the next generation remain financially well off. 19% of the population controls 49% of the wealth.
Wow.
Yeah. Frequently positioned as political and economic decision makers. They're central actors in shaping the national narrative.
Wow.
And then the ruling class, the owning class.
The aristocrats.
Luxurious.
Aristocrats. The aristocrats.
The aristocrats. They have enough income from assets that full-time work is optional. So these are people who do not need to work, but they can. Education at elite schools, they receive or they pass down very large inheritances. Somebody once said it's the difference. So Shaq has been an extremely successful basketball player, and then actor and commentator. Like, he's a big deal. And somebody said, no, Shaq has made money. He has worked well. He is in the upper class, the managerial class. But there's a difference between Shaq and the person who signs Shaq's checks. And it's like, okay, he's wealthy. He's upper class. But there's a ruling class above that.
Yeah.
And it's like he doesn't have that wealth. Now, if Shaq passed that money down to his family, he could build that dynasty. He could build them into the
That's
owning.
Interesting.
It was fascinating. I think it was Dave Chappelle who had a whole stretch of like, no. Because his big thing was like, we have African Americans who are hitting these levels that they've never hit before. And so he's like a sort of an example of one of the first to like really hit this massive. I thought that was really interesting.
That's very interesting.
Social connection, status, financial knowledge help the next generation remain wealthy. These are the global elite, the vast majority of power. CEOs, billionaires, presidents, senators, high positions of power in state. Wow. Approximately 1% of the population controls roughly 40% of the money.
Wow.
Which we've heard of this, but it's weird to see it like written down. Yeah. And there's like charts and proofs and all this kind of stuff. But it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it very.
And I think it's primarily determined by money. Mm-hmm. That's the major driver. Yeah, that's what you but and again, I keep revisiting my theory that yes, these distinctions exist. I'm not going to pretend they don't. And maybe this is just me in my working class, lower, middle class. I'm not bitter about it. I'm trying to phrase it in a nice way.
Spin it. Yeah.
But honestly, I don't know that I would enjoy being in a different class.
I wouldn't.
I would enjoy not stressing about money because that is a thing. You know, we do. I think we live very comfortably. We have a home, a roof over our head. We have enough money to pay the bills. We're not wealthy. When we get an unexpectedly high expense, it does affect our lives pretty significantly.
Right.
Like the car payment we have to do, or not car payment, but the fixing the car.
What are we doing with this car? Yes. That's
but that throws us for a loop, and we have to adjust. But we have the resources and support systems to handle it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And so I consider us very blessed. I don't know that I would want to deal with more.
I know. Yeah, I agree. I do agree.
So I'm not saying that I love having financial stresses, but I think I've chosen this bracket, if you will.
I think there's an acceptance and, not I've resigned myself. This is it's more of
That's
like
what I'm wondering. Is that what I'm doing?
I'm happy with the choices that we've made. And yes, it's always true. You could, work a second job so that we can have extra money. You could do this, but it's like, I'm okay. Like,
I'm really comfortable.
God has blessed me with the life that I have, and I don't need to fight tooth and nail to have more. The goal is not wealth in this life for me. Like, that's not...
And I think that's ultimately my greatest privilege. So, like, I chose to be a pastor. I could have picked a job that makes a lot more money.
I have never had a lucrative job. Teachers, instructors, whatever. They don't make a lot of money.
And so if I think about it, it's like these classes, it used to be like the whole goal in life is to climb out of your class, climb to the next level. Wherever you're at, climb to the next level. And I guess I do think if I was in the poor or the working poor level, I would want to climb out of it. But I do love where I'm at. And I'm like, I guess I'm like, I could make more money doing other things. But to do this thing is the greatest thing. Like I love my job. I would not want to do anything else. And that means unless I was one of those like skeevy televangelist people, whatever, like very rarely is a pastor make a lot of money.
It's true.
And I don't want to, I don't want to be one of those. And so it's like, I guess I'm very happy. And so the class system, as much as it is a very real thing, it just doesn't matter as much in the modern world, I guess. So I have one more element to this. Okay. So a while back, there was a podcast I was listening to where a guy was complaining about new money. So mostly, I think the easiest example is tech billionaires.
Sure.
These are extremely young people who started out maybe working class poor or middle class, and they have made billions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And so now they are able to exist in what you might call the owners of the ruling class spaces without having that mentality. So what you get is like the extremely upscale restaurants, and then the guy is sitting there in his sweatpants. Does that make sense? And so what he was complaining about was he's a well-known journalist and commentator, and he was telling a story of, he's like, I've done very well. My family, we've made a lot of money, and I wanted to take my wife out for our anniversary to a very nice restaurant. Requires a suit and coat, like you have to wear a jacket to get in, and I was really frustrated because 2 tables over there were people in their sweatpants. And I
think that's just being obtuse to social cues. Like, it's true, you have a lot of money. That doesn't exempt you from,
But they think it does, though, because they weren't raised in this world, in this environment.
It's just being tacky and not having tact.
A little bit, yeah.
Yes, it's true. I may not have the nicest, pair of shoes or whatever, but it's a recurring problem that goes beyond just that type of. It's all the young people today thinking they don't have to dress up for an interview.
Yeah,
and I have a problem with that because I'm the person that you better believe that when we were living in Chicago and I was trying to get a job, I went to the Home Depot and I dressed up and I wore a suit jacket. Like I dressed up. I wore a suit jacket. I wore heels. Yes, I know I'm applying to Home Depot.
I was just going to say, to clarify, you did.
I dropped off an application and went to an interview.
Yes.
For Home Depot, where I would have absolutely been a checker or working whatever on stocking shelves.
I remember that.
And I dressed up nice for it.
Right.
But I can't get that out of my system. Like, if you're going to interview, you absolutely dress nice. You know, and so that's my mentality. Like, but today's youth don't feel they have to. They should be able to wear their jeans or whatever they want to the interview, because you should just accept me for who I am. I think this is ridiculous, but that's not tactful. Like, you have to understand, like, not everyone's coming from that place. And there are some things that are just expected social cues that you need to be able to pick up on and be respectful of others. Like, and so I think that's tacky. I would also feel frustrated if I was like, let's go to a nice restaurant. It's like everybody knows you're going to the theater, you're going to the symphony,
the
you're going to go to the symphony.
Yeah, dress
nice.
Yep.
Like, wear your jacket, wear your fancy dress.
Yep.
It doesn't. I don't have to shop at the most expensive store. I might have gotten my dress, but
nice.
You can still dress nice within your means.
Absolutely.
You don't have to, spend $3,000 on an outfit. However, it is tacky to show up in jeans and a t-shirt. That's inappropriate.
I think this lends itself to maybe a whole other conversation we maybe save for another day, because I think the conversation on what does it mean to dress nice and what does that look like, I think has evolved, and I think we've almost pendulum swung from it was too important, where it was like everything was how you looked, swung, we pushed back against that, swung all the way to like it doesn't matter at all what you wear, and now I think we're swinging back to like, well, maybe our clothing and the way we present ourselves has value, because what you're finding, and I mentioned this to you the other day.
I was just thinking about this.
There was a person on Facebook in one of the Grand Rapids community groups who was saying, I want to find a church in the area, and people were recommending. But it was like, I want a church that expects you to dress up, because our last church expected us to dress up, and we're a young family, and actually we really liked that expectation, that church was a place where you dress up.
And growing up, that was the expectation.
See, and growing up for me, that was the legalistic requirement, and so
but it's a part of me that I have a hard time getting out of my head. It's hard for me to put our kids in jeans and t-shirts on a Sunday. I'm
Which is
I'm
funny because we're at like a super chill.
I know.
Church that
it's like a super chill. And it's hard for me still sometimes to look in the mirror and be like, I can't wear this to church.
Yep.
Like, because growing up, it was like you wore a skirt, you wore a dress, you wore something nice. If you did wear jeans, you had to wear a dressy top, or you had to wear nice shoes with it or something. Like, do not show up in jeans with holes in them, JJ. I mean, you'll never hear the end of that one.
Listeners, to fill in the backstory, the first time I ever went to church with Sarah's family, I showed up with jeans that had holes in them, and that
I don't think I've ever seen
eyebrows.
Pants in such disrepair. My dad still to this day comments on the fact that he was proud of you for wearing your church pants because they were holy.
It was just such a good opportunity for him to give that dad joke out.
Just warms my mom joke soul. But yeah, I do agree. I think that there's a balance somewhere, and I hope we find it, because I feel like we're almost becoming lazy to some extent as far as
Well, and I think I think actually people, once we abandoned church clothes as a value statement, I think we realized, oh no, it's nice to have. And so I think people are sort of grasping back at it to say, I want my clothing to be able to make a statement about I value this. I think you still see it to some degree, like at a wedding. We dress up at a wedding, not because you have to, but because I want to respect what's happening. I'm happy for the couple.
It's a formal
their special
event.
day, so I'm going to dress up. Or like a funeral, right? I'm going to dress up. And I've had people tell me like, "Oh, he wouldn't care. Don't dress up for this funeral." And it's like, yeah, but this is.
I want to show more respect for that situation.
I have had some casual funerals, but I do think we're starting to swing back towards. We tried it where clothing doesn't mean anything and you can do whatever you want. And I think some people
Didn't
are
go so well for us.
I think we're yearning for a deeper meaning in the way we present ourselves to the world. And I'm not saying you have to spend a ton of money, but just I want to look nice for a nice thing. I want to show reverence and respect in what I'm wearing.
Yep.
And I think we've totally gotten away from the class discussion, but I do think the clothing discussion is so much more interesting.
Tangential.
But I'm so sorry. We're going way late, but I just am enjoying this conversation. So, friends, thank you so much for joining into this wonderful conversation. Let us know what you think. What do you think about class systems? Do you think that you have chosen the class you're in? Do you believe in the classes? And what do you think about like church clothes and dressing up and how we present ourselves to the world? Are you thinking, nope, it shouldn't matter what we should look like? Or do you feel like there is value in how we present ourselves in a classy way? All right, are you ready to send us out with the mom joke of the week?
Try to decide which one to use.
Ooh, give them all to me. Give them
right.
all. It's already an overly long episode. Who cares?
Why did the apple pie go to the dentist?
I have no idea.
Because it needed a filling.
There you go. I was trying to find a pun.
Next
I was like,
one. What do you call a doctor who specializes in Adam's apples?
I have no idea.
A gynecologist.
That's so dumb.
It's so dumb, but it makes me laugh every time I read it.
I love it. All right. Bye.
Well, bye.
I'm so glad we left them with that.